Good morning, students. How are you all doing? How is your studies going? Any questions? We'll first address your questions and then I'll go to the next topic of revision. Yes, students, आपके कोई सवाल, कोई doubts? Please feel free to ask. Whatever you have studied till now in your regular classes, in your revision classes, if there is anything relating to our subject, kindly tell me so that we can discuss that first. And then I will take up my further deliberation. Yes, Sai Kiran, beta, please go on. पूछिए बेटा, साई किरण. सर ये अनम्यूट नहीं हो रहे. हाँ,
Sir, while in the overheads, while calculating mission hours, is mission charges and standing charges separation is required or not, sir?
Sir, that is better required only when the question specifically asks you to do that.
Because in sometimes mission hours differs for mission charges and standing charges. Now at that time
Correct.
we have to.
You are right, beta, but that is when the question is specifically asking it. So that is the correct way of doing it.
Okay. Here my question is, can you explain how to differentiate that both charges? Sir?
Yes. Okay. So your question is how to differentiate. See, the answer is simple. The expenses which are fixed in relation to that particular machine operation, like the rent, the fixed salaries, at times the depreciation when it is calculated on fixed basis and not running of the machine, all these come in the fixed or standing charges. So all expenses that are fixed in nature, that are incurred irrespective of the running of machine. Now what will be coming in the running and maintenance charges? It is the power expense, it is the expense on the oil, it is the expense on depreciation, where depreciation is charged on the basis of running of machine, and it is the operator's wages, wherever operator wages is again paid on the basis of running of machine. So this is how you bifurcate between standing and running. Is this clear, beta?
And power also it will be there, sir. Setup and maintenance.
Power I said mention at the start, beta. Power is the first running cost. Power is always a running cost, beta.
There is a setup and maintenance is there, sir, that how to differentiate for standing and mission charges. Setup charge and maintenance charge for power. For power, sir, maintenance time and setup time.
So I did not get your question.
In power is expended for setup time, maintenance time, and mission running time, sir. How it is to be affected for standing charges and mission charges?
See, beta, power is always incurred only when the machine is in operation. In fact, while calculating machine hours, we reduce the setup and maintenance time, and on the balance hours only we calculate power. Am I right?
Okay, so then standing charges, power will not come. So standing charges,
obviously,
power
beta,
will not.
please understand, beta. Remove the word standing, keep the word fixed in your mind.
Okay,
now you tell me whether power is fixed or variable.
Variable, sir.
Simple. So it will not come in standing, na?
Okay. So some confusion is there. That's why I asked it, sir.
No problem, beta. No problem.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Students, any further queries, or should we proceed with our today's deliberation? Okay. So now the topic that we are going to discuss today is one of my favorite topics in costing, that is process and operation. what is process, what is operation? Let us try to understand. So these are the parallel names given to this process or operation costing. So this particular method of costing is applicable whenever your entire manufacturing activity is divided into stages, which we call as process. So let us say you are going to work in stages, stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. Now, what is the peculiarity about process? The peculiarity is you introduce some raw material here. On that raw material, you incur the expenses on conversion, which is called as conversion cost, which is nothing but your direct wages, your production overheads. These are your conversion cost. Now, when you incur these, that is the processing charges, when you do processing of this raw material, at the end of the first stage or the first process, you get some output. This is not the final output. This is the output of process 1. So in our total product scenario, it is an intermediate product. It is not the final product, right? So on doing processing in first process, at the end of this, I will get output, which is the output of process 1. This output flows to the second process, and this becomes input of the second process. Maybe some additional material is consumed here. Again, you will incur conversion cost, which will be direct wages plus overheads. And this entire will again give you some output. Again, this is an intermediate product. It is not the final output. It is the output at the end of stage 2 or process 2. And this output flows and becomes input in process 3. And in process 3, we incur our additional material, if any, again conversion cost, which is direct wages, production overheads, and total of this gives me my finished goods. So this is how process costing is applicable or is prevalent in industries where your entire manufacturing activity is split into different parts, different segments, different sections. I hope this first point is clear to everyone. Anybody has any doubts with this? Now, it may happen that while doing this processing, there may be some loss. So your entire input may not become output as far as the physical quantity is concerned. There may be some loss. Now, whenever there is a loss, costing requires the loss to be bifurcated into normal and abnormal. Now, what would be this normal and abnormal? The loss which was expected at the start, even before doing the process, which is generally given in percentage, is the normal loss. So let us say your input here is 1000 units. Your percentage given is 10%. So my normal expected loss is 100. However, when I get the actual report, I get to know that my total loss, the total unit scrapped is 125. So out of that, 100 will be accounted as normal loss and 25 will be accounted as abnormal loss. And the balance 875 will proceed to the next process. It may also happen that in a particular scenario, let us say in this same example, when you are expecting a loss of 10% on input of 1000 units, that is the expected loss is 100, your actual loss is only 95. In such a case, again, when we are doing accounting, we will account normal loss as 100 only. Normal loss has nothing to do with actual loss. If actual loss is more, the difference is abnormal loss. If actual loss is less, like in our case, actual loss is less, so we will account this 5 which is 95 minus 100, because actual loss is 95 and expected loss is 100. So this 5 will be accounted as abnormal gain. Now here, whatever figures I'm taking, these are figures in terms of quantities. Valuation has to be done. That is what we are going to study in this chapter. So in this chapter, quantitative data is available. What we have to do is we have to do costing. That is, we have to do the valuation part. I hope this is clear. This is understood by everyone. Yes, students, anybody still having a doubt or question? Please feel free to ask your doubts and questions. No questions. Okay, excellent. Now let me take you ahead further in this particular topic. So if you have understood up to this point, that is, we have studied up to the basics of how the process flows. In this, there is one more possible adjustment, that at the start of the period, you may have some units which are lying semi-finished, carried forward from the past period, which is your opening WIP. And similarly, at the end, you may have some quantity which is lying unfinished, semi-finished at the end of this period, which is your closing WIP. Right? So these are the further possible entries in this particular process, and the same will continue in further processes as well. Now, when we are going to deal with sums, our exams has sums of all types. First, there could be sums where there is no loss, no WIP. Second, there could be sums where there are losses, normal, abnormal, in abnormal, abnormal gain, abnormal loss, but there may be no WIP. And third category is where you will have even WIP, opening, closing, or any one of the two. And also, you have one more adjustment, that is inter-process profits, whereby the output that you are transferring from one process to another is valued above the cost. So whatever costing we do here to find out the cost of the output, we do not transfer it at the cost itself. We add up some margin and we transfer it at the inflated value or the value including margin, which becomes the inter-process profit sums. So these are the different category of sums that we are going to deal with. We will start one by one with each type of sums. All these sums that I have taken are majorly from your past exams, from MTPs, RTPs. So we get a variety of the different type of questions that are asked in our exams. Still, I will request you all to kindly go through module, kindly go through different material that our institute provides us. Again, I have uploaded this. You may download it for your easy reference. So, starting with my first category of sum, where there is no WIP. So, my first category of sum that I have taken is, I have taken a sum where only process inputs, outputs are there. There is no semi-finished goods in the process. There is no opening, closing WIP in the process. Right? Now, the data may be given in tabular form like this, or as we'll proceed, you'll find the data may be given in paragraph form. It is not there in BOS. Technical team, can you please approve the PDF which I have uploaded? If I am not wrong, I have uploaded correctly in the revision box only. You may please check and approve it. Students, in the meantime, I'll request you take a screenshot of this for the time being. Okay. So I was saying there are two types of, there are two manners in which questions may be drafted and given in the sum exam. One is either in the tabular form like how you are having in front of you, or as we'll proceed, you'll find that certain sums may not be in tabular form. They may be in some paragraph form like this. So whatever is the type or the manner in which the question is given, we should be able to understand the question and should be able to compute the answer. Now, the best part of this chapter is that this chapter is very much formatted like many other chapters of costing, where you have to only understand the question, which category of question it is you have to identify, and accordingly apply the correct format, the correct formulae, you will get the answer without any problem. There is not much deviation except small here and there language adjustments. Other than that, everything is very much structured. Everything is very much particular and predefined. So let us understand this. The question says a product passes through two processes. So in order to become finished goods, there are two processes required. The details are 10,000 units are introduced in the first process. The cost is 20,000. Please read the question carefully, whether it is at the rate of, which means it is per unit, or it is total. Here it is total because it is at a cost of. Then additional material which is required is 24,000. Now this does not have any quantity, so this is only value. Then you have labor cost, you have direct expense, and the factory overheads. For that, some charging rate is given. For the time being, I am not considering loss because I need to take all types of sums starting from the very first sum where there is no special adjustment. Even you get these type of sums for 3 to 4 marks. So no loss is there. Also in the entire sum, you will not find the detail of WIP. So there is no WIP. So it is a plain vanilla sum, right? Now the format that is expected for solving these sums is you need to prepare a process account. Now, since we have process which may be 1, 2 or more, you need to name the process. So this is first process account, process 1 account, etc. Now, generally the details that you require, in my previous lecture, I had mentioned you need not use paper, pen and scale. You can use freehand drawing with your own pen. So I'm purposely doing that. I could have already taken a pre-drawn format, which I have saved in my OneNote, where I have already drawn a proper table for account format, but I did not take that format just to make you aware that in exams also you have to do it like this only. So your exams would be a blank paper only, it would be a ruled paper. You have to simply draw the freehand drawing. But if you're not able to solve some question, we'll try to deal with that at the end. Okay. Fine, Bida? Okay. Now, let me take this forward. So what are the details that are required? First is the particulars. Now, what is very special is you have a quantity column and you have the amount column. So generally in our ledger accounts, whatever we have been studying, we only have the amount column besides the particulars column. Here, you have one more additional column that is of quantity. And this is the most important column because this is the column which helps you in doing costing, how you'll understand. Now, there is no opening WIP, so I directly start with to direct material, where the quantity given in the sum is 10,000, value is 20,000. Then you have additional material for which there is no quantity. Then you have labor. No need to drop it up per unit column. There is no requirement of making per unit column here. Direct wages, you have direct expenses, and you have your production overheads, right? I'll just copy the figures from the sum. So 24,000, 28,000, 8,000. 24, 28, and 8. Now, production overheads are charged at the rate of 200% of direct wages, which is 28,000. So it comes to 56,000. Now, in this sum, on the credit side, there are no losses. There is no closing WIP. So directly, whatever is my output, that is entirely processed to. So in quantity, it is 10,000. And in amount, I have to simply make a addition of all the expenses. So 20, 24, 44, 44 and 56, 100, 128, 136. So my total cost of goods transferred from process 1 to process 2 is 1,36,000. Fine, students? Then I prepare the next process, that is the process 2 account. You call it as process 2, you call it as second process. So that much variation in names is permissible. There is no hard and fast rule. Again, it will be particulars, it will be quantity and amount. Particulars, quantity and amount. Now here, your first input is what you have received from process 1. This is your main input or main raw material. For you, it is costing 1,36,000. Then again, you have direct, that is additional material. You have direct wages, direct expenses, and you have production overheads. So now my additional material is 12, 16, 8, 5, 6, 6. Odd figure. 8, 5, 6, 6. Correct? 8, 5, 6, 6. Oh. This is 12. This is 16. And my production overheads are 120%. Direct wages is 16. So it becomes 16 to the 32, 19,000. Again, no loss, no WIP. So now since this is my last process for this particular case, my entire output will be transferred to finished goods account. Now try to recall our previous lecture, which was revision lecture, when we were dealing with cost accounting. In cost accounting, if you remember, we were preparing 3 product accounts, WIP, FG, and COS. Now try to link that chapter in this chapter. Now when your manufacturing activities in processes, the WIP account that we were preparing over there is over here, process account, which will be WIP 1, that is process 1, WIP 2, that is process 2, and after that it is finished. So over there we had only one WIP account because we were not doing process costing. If your scenario is of process, you will have 2 WIP accounts, which is the 2 process accounts. So this account, process account, is nothing but the WIP account. You can cross-check the entries over there and here. Over there also you had the same entry in the WIP account because WIP and process are same. In fact, that is why over here you have opening WIP and closing WIP. Try to link chapters. Now since we have already studied this once in your regular lecture and now you are coming to revision lecture, now we have a broad overview of the subject. Now try to connect the chapters internally to find out how these different chapters are interlinked, interconnected, so that you'll understand and appreciate the subject better. Right? So 36 and 28 is 64, 64, 72, 72 and is 91. So it is 191, 191, 766. So this is my total cost. So this is the first type of sum, a basic sum, no fancy adjustments, a very simple logical case. Yes. Anybody having any doubts? Yes, students? Any doubts with first sum? Could I proceed to the next sum? Good. Om, your name is Om or Om Krishnam is your name? I was having this doubt in the previous class also. I forgot to ask. Is it Om, your main, means first name, complete name, or it is Om Krishna? Okay. So let us proceed, students. Let us go to second sum. Now in this second sum, I have covered the adjustment for loss as well. So this is going to be interesting. Plus, I have even made it further lengthy. Lengthy in the sense I have extended it because I wanted to cover more possible adjustments in one sum. So here you have three processes. Fine. So let us go ahead. So first, product B is obtained after it passes through three distinct processes. The following information is obtained from the accounts for the week ending this. Now, direct material, direct wages, production overheads. Now, this is the total amount of all processes combined, not necessary for us. Now, you have individual details, which is important. So, material, labor. Now, for overheads, how they are going to charge, that will be specified. Fine. Further, at the start, 1000 units are input at the rate of 3 per unit. So, the process one has the raw material input of 1000, which is costing rupees 3 per unit. There was no stock of material or WIP. So again, for the time being, I have kept losses only in this sum. I have not yet introduced the adjustment of WIP. We'll go step by step. Again, all these sums are exam sums. So you can expect even a sum without WIP, even a sum without losses. So there is no such rule that you'll always have WIP. That depends upon the weightage which the examiner wants to put to this chapter. According to that, you'll have the number of adjustments. So this is a sum again which is not having WIP, it is having the adjustment for loss. Further, it says output of each process passes directly to the next process. Fine, that is the anyways the case, and the last it is goes to finished store. Overheads will be charged at the rate of 100% of wages. Fine. Now coming to our most interesting point. The output that you are getting from each processes, process 1 gives 950, 2 gives 840, 3 gives 750, and these are the percentages of losses with realizable value. Now this may or may not be there. So that is fine. If it is there, you will consider it. If it is not there, fine. Now we have to prepare all the three process accounts and we have to prepare the related losses account. Normal loss, abnormal loss, as the case may be. Again, once just take a screenshot in case the sheet is not available on the portal. Kindly take a screenshot, students. Done? Okay. So we are on second sum. Process 1. Now I'm not spending time on writing the headings. You all very well know the headings. I directly start solving. And here I will also have the normal loss account and the abnormal loss or gain account, as the case may be, that we'll get to know once we do the postings. Also, besides these accounts, you will also require the working notes for now doing costing. So once you have losses and WIP adjustment in the question, you will require working notes for further answering the question. Let's see. So let me start. So you have to raw material, you can call it as direct material. Then you have additional material, you have direct wages, and you have product. So raw material is 1000 at the rate of 3, and then 2600 and 2000. This is at the rate of 100% of direct wages, which is 2000. Now, we are given some normal loss, which is 5% on input, and your finished goods is 950. Finished goods means output of this process. So by process 2 account, you transfer 950 units there. Now normal loss is 5%. 5% of your input quantity, which comes to 50. Now, in this question, I have no abnormal adjustment because normal loss is 50. Units transfer to the next process, that is the output of process 1 going to process 2 given in the sum is 950. this total matches my quantity of input. So it means in this question, there is no abnormal. See, I've intentionally created a question where you should have even a scenario where you only have normal. Because generally, when you solve these process costing sums, whenever normal adjustment is given, something in abnormal always creeps in, either abnormal loss or abnormal gain. So as a student, you are used to this, that whenever normal loss percentage would be given, there should be always something abnormal. That is not the case. Please understand this. See, practically also, in fact, this would be the scenario in majority cases that you will be working at the normal level, by which I mean there will be no abnormal loss, no abnormal gain. Correct? Is this fine? Now coming to the most important point. How to value the normal loss? The answer is value of normal loss is equal to the scrap value. So always you will put the scrap value against the normal loss quantity. That will be the value of normal loss in the process account, and also the corresponding entry will flow to the normal loss account that we will just see. So what is the rate given for scrap? It is rupees 2 per unit. So at the rate of rupees 2, I will get rupees 100. So what is my value that I will get against normal loss? It will be rupees 100. Now my posting will flow from this process account to my normal loss account, where this amount of 100 would be debited. Now in your loss accounts, you need not prepare the quantity column. Quantity column will appear only in the process account, because over there what you are going to do is do costing. Right? Now, in this sum, since there is no abnormal, since there is no WIP, I need not spend time in using the formula for finding out the value, because I only have to find one value, which is nothing but now the balance. So my total cost incurred is this much. By selling my normal loss, I get this much. So my output will cost me the balance. So it is 3,000, 5,600, 7,600, 9,600 minus 100 is 9,500. And the second effect of this is that 9,500 will now be transferred from process 1 to my next process, which I am going to draw below, that is process 2. I hope this is clear. So my process account is tallied, it is closed. But what is interesting is what happens of my normal loss account. So in my normal loss account, I have transferred 100, which is coming from my process account. What is the closure entry for this? Now, what does this 100 represent? Try to recall. This 100 represents the scrap value. Now, this entry was adjusting this 100 in the process account, because it is the scrap value of normal loss. Now, what is the effect? The effect is I will sell the scrap and I will realize this money. So my normal loss account will show me 100 rupees on the credit side as a realization from bank. So when I will sell this scrap in the market, I will realize rupees 100. So this is the entry relating to normal loss when there is scrap value. Any doubts, students? Any questions? Any doubts? Please let me know. Please raise your hands. We will unmute you so that you can ask your questions directly. Anybody wants to know something, please feel free to ask. Right? No questions? Excellent. Now, we proceed to the next process. So now I'm drawing process 2 account. In process 2, the entries that I will be having will be, first, I will have the main raw material coming from process 1, which is 950 units, which I valued over there at 9,500. Then again, I'll have additional material. I will have direct wages. I will have production units. So let us just check this. Additional material here is 1980. Labor is 3,000. 1980, 3,000. Overheads is charged at the rate of 100% of wages. So it is coming to 3,000. Now, I have some loss expected, which is now 10%. And I have some output going to the next process, which is 840. So by process 3. Acha students, I hope you are also observing how I am solving. I have left some space blank here. Why? Because in case there is any abnormal loss, I just want a proper presentation that normal loss, abnormal loss, and final product. It should appear like this. So I have left a space blank in between. If there is no abnormal loss, like how it happened in the previous process here, so that blank space will remain blank and it will not appear bad. So there is no problem. It will still appear okay. And if there is abnormal loss, I will put the entry over here. So it will be a logical flow of entry and it is considered as a good presentation. So this is 840 as given. Now 10% of this comes to 95. Now the total should match 950. However, here the total of this is coming to 935. It means there is a difference of 15 units on the credit side, which represents my abnormal loss. So this is how I find out the quantity of normal and abnormal loss. I will be preparing these accounts here, and now it is going to get more interesting. As I prepare these accounts here, it will be getting more interesting. Also, now I'll have to do some working to ascertain the cost. Okay. Now, firstly, this. We have already understood that this value will always be the scrap value of your normal loss units. So you need not do any costing, any working for this. This will be simply taken from the sum on the basis of the scrap value given. The scrap value is 4 per unit. That is your scrap getting sold at 4 per unit. So for 95 units of normal loss, what I'm going to get is rupees 380. So 380 becomes the value. I do the second effect posting to process 1 account 380. Correct? Now this and this I will get by doing costing, for which I will be doing this working. Now here I go to the mother formula. Now I'm sure you all know the mother formula. To find out cost per unit, the mother formula says in the numerator you take the cost, from that subtract the scrap value of normal loss. In the denominator you take the total quantity and from that subtract the normal loss. Yes. So what is this, Swati? Sir, process to account. Achha, here you are mentioned. Okay, Swati, thank you. Swati has corrected me. Here it should be process to account. Right, Swati? Fine. Now, I'll do costing by using the mother formula. So firstly, I'll take a total of my debit side. It is 3 plus 3, 6, 7. 7 and 9 is 16. 16 and 17, 17,480. So total of debit side is 17,480. Minus scrap value is 380. So this is my debit side upon input of this process was 950 minus scrap units was 95. By doing this, I get my cost per unit. So people are putting in the chat box as 20 per unit. So I'm not using my calculator for that. So I get cost per unit as 20. Now also I have to do the second part, that is valuation. Because there are two things in the process for which I need to find out the value. One is the value of abnormal loss. One is the value of goods transferred to the next process. So I'll do valuation of both. First for abnormal loss units and second for the units which now I'll be transferring to the next process. Abnormal loss is 15 units. Next process is 480 units into per unit, which I have just computed to be rupees 20. So this comes to 300 and this comes to 16,800. This is fine, students. So 300, 16,800. So I get the total matched for my process. And with this, my process to account closes. Now I'll be doing the postings. This I've already posted here. This I will be posting to my abnormal loss account. So abnormal loss account, I'm transferring value of 300. This will be posted to the next process account, which I'll be drawing after this. Fine. I hope everything is going smooth. Everything is clear till this particular stage. Now comes the closure of these loss accounts. Again, I will be selling this scrap in the market. So I will realize the money. So cash bank 380 close. Again, this also I will be selling in the market because this is also my scrap. Now please remember how many units of scrap are there? 15. So how much will you realize? 15 units into rupees 4, which is the scrap value per unit. So it is 60. But the costing that you did of this abnormal loss came to rupees 300. So the costing is 300, but you are selling for 60. So difference is going to your cost, profit and loss account because it represents your loss. So for you, these abnormal units cost you 300 rupees, but you could realize only 60 by selling it. So now your effective loss on these units, which will be debited to your P&L, that is, you are going to bear the loss, that comes to rupees 240. I hope this is very, very clear to everyone. Please understand that whenever there is abnormal loss, in abnormal loss, first part will be the realization through bank, which will be your abnormal loss units into the scrap value per unit. And the balance would be your final loss, which will be borne by you, borne by your company by debiting it to your cost P and L account. Any doubts, students? Anybody? Any doubts? Anybody wants me to explain something again? Anybody has not understood anything? Mika says clear. Yamini also says clear. Okay. Great. So let me now proceed to the next. Kavita, Om. Okay, everyone. Fine. Excellent. See, this is my most comprehensive sum, I'll say, which I have crafted. So that in this one sum, you get the feel of all possibilities when it comes to losses. So now I draw my process 3 account. Again in process 3, my main input is coming from process 2, this part, which is 840 units, which has been valued at 16,800 up to the previous process. This is the value. In this, I will add additional material. I will also charge the wages and I will charge the overheads. Fine. Now, 2962, 4,000. This is charged at the rate of 100%. Again, my normal loss account. Again, one line blank. I will write by finished goods account. Percentage is 15. Scrap value is 5. And finished goods is 750. So finished goods, 750 units. 15% of this. Correct? So 42, 884 plus 42 is 126. Correct? 126 is my normal loss at the rate of 15%. 15% of 840. Now, interestingly, the total over here, this plus this comes to 876. Whereas your input is only 840. It means this month you have a benefit. You have been able to work more efficiently and save your loss to the extent of 36 units. This is called as your abnormal gain. So here 36 units represent the abnormal gain. Right, students? Now, scrap value is 5. So for this 126 units, my value is 5. So it comes to 630. Right? Now I draw my loss accounts. Here, yeah, I also have now another account, which is abnormal gain. And again, I need to do working to find out the values. Same mother formula. Numerator is my cost minus scrap value of normal loss. Denominator is my inputs minus normal loss units. 840 minus 126, the denominator. This is 630. Now the total cost. Total of my debit side 16, 18, and 826, 27, 562. 27, 562. So what is my cost per unit that I'm getting? Yes, students. I'm saying it is 27762. Correct. It is 27762. So my per unit cost comes to 38. Now, let us value. This is 36 units, right? 36 units of abnormal gain, 70 units of this. So into 38. I get my values. 3,000. Yes. How much am I getting? 28,500. Correct. And the value of abnormal gain comes to 1,368. Please cross confirm, students. I have not yet started using my calculator. So if you are helping me calculation, that is great. It means parallelly you are also solving. Correct. So my process is complete. Now let me do postings. So first posting is of normal loss. So normal loss account gets 630. And the second posting is of abnormal gain. Abnormal gain account gets 1,368. Please do the postings correctly. Abnormal gain would be credit entry because we have debited the process account here. So from debit, the entry will flow to the credit side of abnormal gain. Now comes the best part. Please remember, students, that we computed normal loss taking the percentage given in the question, which is 15%. 15% gave me 126 units. However, this sum is a sum of abnormal gain, which means that actually there was no loss of 126 units. Actual loss was lower by 36 units. Or in other words, your actual loss is only 90 units. I was expecting 126, loss reduced by 36. It means effectively my loss is 90. I hope I'm making some sense. Now please understand, whatever I'll realize, I was expecting 126, but I got 36 less. That is, I only got 90. And this 90 is giving me rupees 5. So I'm actually getting only 450 in my bank in total. My actual recovery in bank is only 450. This is my actual loss. 126 expected, 36 is the savings, that is gain. So my actual loss is 90. 90 valued at the scrap value of 5 gives me 450. In other words, in normal loss, I had debited 630, assuming the normal loss would be 126, realizing 5. So I debited 630. But actually the normal loss reduced to 90. So I only got 450. So there is a difference of 180. I hope you are getting this. Difference of 180. This is transferred to abnormal gain. Why? Because I got this difference in my normal loss account because of abnormal gain. Had there been no abnormal gain of 36 units, I would have realized my complete 126 units. But since there was this savings of 36 units, hence my actual loss reduced to 90. Hence I could recover only scrap value on 90 units and not the expected 126 units. In other words, whatever is my less recovery of 180 rupees, that is attributable to abnormal gain. So I transfer this difference from normal loss account to abnormal gain account. And then finally, the difference in abnormal gain account will be transferred to cost P and L account. Correct? Is this understood by all students? This is the special effect whenever you have abnormal gain. Please raise your doubts, questions, if any, in this. I'm giving you time to understand, to decode this. Great. I usually take no doubt. Home has also understood. Other students, please check if you have also got the correct detailings. If somebody is not understanding any aspect of this, please feel free to ask. Swati is also giving thumbs up. So she has also understood. Yes, everybody, because this is a technical point, slightly tricky point. Kavita also gives thumbs up. So that is why I'm giving you time to understand. Yes, Kiran has asked a very valid question. Sir, do we need to make a separate loss account for each process? See, actually, it is not required, but practically, I'll say yes, for a simple reason that if you try to mix all loss accounts in one, it may be a bit difficult for you only to understand how to pose the difference, where to pose the difference. It is recommended from exam point of view, from practical point of view, prepare loss accounts separately for each process. However, there is no such compulsion because loss account can be one which can show losses of all process at one place. But as I said, this may lead to some wrong answering, some wrong calculation. So suggested for exams is prepare separate. Anyways, it is not going to take much time of yours in exam. Hardly 1 or 2 minutes more, but that will ensure you 100% correct answer without there being any scope of any mistake. That is why I'm suggesting prepare separate account, though it is not a compulsion. Fine, students? Great. Chalo. Now let me test you. I give you 5 minutes to solve it by yourself. Question number 3. It is slightly different from what we solved, but it is again on the same lines of losses. But I want you all to give it a genuine try so that we'll understand how you are interpreting the question. Sure. Over to you, next 5 minutes. Cover. Now, generally what happens is, once we are doing a particular type of sum, we try to look upon the other sums also in the same manner. Like, as you saw here, again, they have given you some loss percentage. So generally, how will you approach the sum? You again go to prepare the process accounts. Now here there are total 5 processes, sorry, 4. Now see, there is no harm in preparing process, but actually here the process format will not help you for the simple reason, one, there is no details of cost given. So how will you do costing to find out the output value? 2, anyways, this is not expected in the sum. Please read the sum. No process account is required. No costing is required. They want you to find out how much will be your raw material consumed quantity at the start of the process. So here the question, even though appearing as a process sum, is actually not a process question. It is basically a question of plain maths. See, this is where costing becomes slightly tricky, because the moment you start going in a flow, the moment you start solving sum smoothly, suddenly in between you have a bouncer where you have something very different from what is going on and what has come within your control. But that is the beauty of costing. No worries, students. You will not get these questions in the exams beyond a limit. Means what? It is not that 40-50% of questions will be all of these odd types. It will be hardly 10-15% out of the total paper. So you may first attempt the 80-85% paper thoroughly, which is part of your regular questions. Score well from there. And then if you have time, because normally practical chapters like accounts, costing and FM, many times students have the lack of timing also. They are not able to complete the entire 100 marks. So in any ways, that may also be a shield for you indirectly. Even if you solve 80-85 perfectly, that is sufficient to score 65 to 70 marks. So do this judiciously. Don't panic with such type of odd questions. Even if you're not able to handle it, it is fine. You may proceed to the next sum in the exam. First, complete the 70, 75, 80 marks paper thoroughly. If that also you can do accurately and thoroughly, you are scoring beyond the borderline. And that is what is required as far as at least the exam passing is concerned. So now let us read. In a manufacturing unit, raw material passes through 4 processes, 1, 2, 3, 4. Output of each process is input of the next process. Fine. Loss in the 4 processes are respectively 25, 20, 20, 16, 2/3. Respectively for 1, 2, 3, 4 of the input. So percentages are computed on input. If the end product at the end of process 4 is 40,000. So they have given this quantity, 40,000. So now they are asking you to find out what would be the raw material requirement. So if final output is 40, how much raw material you should feed at the start? So they want you to find out this quantity, which you may do without preparing process account. That is not required in this sum. Then you'll ask me, sir, then how we can solve this sum without preparing process account? It is simple maths. So it is process 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? I'm drawing a table like this. Input, output. Now what is given? Output here is 40,000. Correct? Now, please understand, students. They have given you loss percentage 25, 20, 20, 16 2/3 or 16.66666 repairing. Now, if these are losses, so our simple equation is input minus loss is output. So you can very well find out the output of each process. So output for process 3 after this loss, which is 16.666 is 83.33. Output where loss is 20 will be 80 and output where loss is 25 will be 75%. So this is your output. Now, if you get how much is output percentage, you can very well find out the input percentage out. So my output is 40,000, which is 83.333% recurring. So when I divide 40,000 by 83.333 recurring, I get my input, because input is 100 minus the loss, you get output, which mathematically comes to 83.33333. So students, tell me, 83.333, if I consider 40,000 as this, so what is the figure which I'm getting? I'm getting 48,000. This 48,000 would have definitely come from here. So this 48 is output of process 3, because process 3 output becomes input. Now I'm going backward. Now the output percentage here is 80. So this would have been 60,000. So from here I'm going backward. Again I'm going further backward. Again this divided by 80%. How much do I get? 75? Yes. So from here I come. From here I go back. And this is how much? 75%. So I get the answer. Raw material required in process 1, 75,000 kgs at the rate of ₹5. I get the total amount. Correct? Yes. Good. So you all have got the right answer. Ayushi, what you gave me as the calculation is slightly incorrect, because this calculation will not give me the correct answer, Ayushi. You may cross-check this. You can check out better. Why this will not give you the correct answer? Because you are saying 100 minus 25. Now the problem is that 20% which you are giving directly as 20%, but it is not 20%, it is 20% of 75. I hope you understood what I mean to say. Correct, Ayushi? So that direct working is not giving you the answer. Okay, sorry, I made a small mistake here again. Ayushi has correctly highlighted this. My final input is not 75, it is 1 lakh. So my final cost is ₹5. So my input is 1 lakh, final input in process 1. And at the rate of 5, my cost is 5 lakhs. This is clear to all students? Is this understood? Anybody having any doubts, questions? Please feel free to ask. Good. Excellent. Okay, beta. Understood, Ayush. But then when you are saying it, it means you are taking 20% off 75%. Then only you'll get the right answer. Right? Correct. Great. Now this is a simple copy paste sum of the previous sum which we solved, that is question number 3. So you may do it yourself. Or wait 1 second. No. Again, there is some interesting adjustment here. What is the interesting adjustment? The percentage of loss in process C is missing. So now in this sum, again, there is something missing. You have to find out the percentage of loss in process C. Chalo. Again, I'll give you some time. do at your end first, so that I will also get to know how much you have understood whatever we have discussed. So you have to go step by step. First process A, then from process A to process B, and from process B to process C, where now what is missing in process C is the percentage of normal loss. Sure. Start solving, start putting your answers. What answer you'll put? What is the final outward value from process A to process B of the output? somewhere. I'm sure by now you would have completed A and B at least. Because without that, we cannot do. Yes, home. So I know you should be stuck, but that is where I want you all to use your application. See, once I give you the answer, then the only option left with you all is only to remember and learn. But I want you all to test yourself. See, the best way to solve any type of missing value question is, or rather, first I'll tell you what is not the right way. What is not the right way is, now you may not have prepared process C, but you are just thinking how to solve process C without abnormal or without the normal loss percentage. So we are, without putting it down, we are trying to just think in air how to, or how I will get the answer. My suggestion is, whenever there is any missing figure sum, put it in black and white. Write it down. Whatever data you have, you write. You already have the process format. Already cost details are given for process C. Draw process C account. Whatever data you have, start putting in. Remember one more thing, students. Whenever the question is on missing figure, if one data which is needed by you is missing, they will provide you some additional data, which is generally not there in the sum. So this is another trick of identifying or solving missing value sum. So first trick or first approach is, you should first write down whatever data you have, pen down everything relating to that missing figure, put down everything. Second important point is that you should find out that additional data given which is otherwise not given in the sums. Because if something is missing, it will be compensated by something else. That you have to identify, that will become your starting point. So in the meantime, for others who may not have been able to solve, I'll just put down process A and B. I'll request students who have solved to help me with the figures as I write down. And then together we'll try to solve process C. So sum number 5, right? Okay. I'm putting the values as they are given. So ABC 10,000 units at the cost of 1.1 is issued to process A. So this is my starting point. And then additional material is, or additional expenses are 15, 45, 10. So it is to direct material, additional material, direct labor, production overheads, what is given? 160% of labor. So 160% of labor, 6. By normal loss by process. Normal loss is 5%. Scrap is 0.25. So 5% comes to 500. 0.25 into 5 is 125. Now the balance is my value of process B. Correct, students? Kindly give me this value. Now when I go to process B, I have to process A. Then I have additional material, direct labor, direct expense, and production overheads. 1581. 1581. And again, this is 160%. So it will be okay. So process 125075. Quantity is 9,500. Loss 4% with 0.5. 4% of this will come to 380. 0.5 will come to 190. And this will be process C, the balance 9120. What value, students? 48185. Correct. So this is also done. Now we go to process C. So it starts with process B. We transferred 9120 units at a value of 48185. Now costs are 500, 6,500, 99. This is additional material. This is direct labor, direct expense, and then I have production overheads, which is 160% of this. Correct? So 650 double is 100. Okay. Now the special part. Now this sum would have been very simple cakewalk had they given the normal loss percentage. But then that is what is the beauty of this sum. That is what is missing. But as I said, if something is missing, some other data is given. Now what is that data given? They say that, firstly, the data which is normally given is scrap value is 1 per unit. That is fine. But what is that additional data? The data is this. Final product will be sold at rupees 10 and it gives you a profit of 20% on sales. So if that is the case, I can find out my total cost per unit. So this is my working. total cost per unit is selling price minus profit. 10 minus 2. How this 2 I got 20% of 10 is rupees paid per unit. So I got my cost per unit. Now this cost per unit I solve by the mother formula. Total cost scrap value of normal loss upon input minus normal loss units. Right? This is my mother formula. Now students, please understand. I do not know these units. So let normal loss units be X. Therefore, scrap value of normal loss units, that is the numerator, will be 1 multiplied by X, because 1 is the scrap value, so it is also X. Now, I rewrite this formula. Total cost per unit I have got here as 8. Total cost of this numerator I will get by making a total of this. Kindly give me this. Minus scrap value is X, which is 1 into normal loss units. In the denominator, I have 9120 minus X again. I hope I'm clear. Make a total of this. Process C debit side. Tell me the total. 66576. Somebody has given me answer. Kavita 66576. 66576. Correct? Now, it has become maths. So this will go on the right hand side. So it will be 8 multiplied by 9120 minus X, this whole bracket, 66576 minus X. So open this bracket. How much do I get? What is this? 8 into 9120. Home, you're right. Now see, you got the answer yourself, right? Okay. Tell me this, students. 91208 72960. Correct? Yes, Swati. Good. Now I'll change the sides. So 72960 minus 66576 minus X plus 8X. So I'm left over here with this. What is my left hand side figure? What is my left hand side figure? 6384. Therefore, X is equal to 912. I divide 7 by 6384, 912. Therefore, normal loss percentage is 912 was my normal loss. Upon my input is 9120 into 100. So 10%. So see the beauty of this sum. From simple process, it has become, or it is designed to become a maths question. And that is how you solve. Is this clear to all? Yes. So Kavita, Swati, Om, Bhumika, very good. Good. Excellent. Impressed. Should we proceed? Students, anybody, any further questions, doubts? Excellent. Chalo. Now I jump to the next category. After understanding process, first was without losses, then there was process with losses. Within losses, we went to back calculation question where only the percentage of losses was given. Then we saw the current question where you were supposed to find out the percentage of loss by some mathematics. Now we go to the next category, which is some where stocks are given in the process, and the stocks in the process is nothing but stock of semi-finished goods or WIP. Now, whenever you are having opening or closing or both WIPs, we have to go to this working of equivalent production. What is this equivalent production? We'll get to know. So let me again take you to one of the exam questions. Now, in this also I have bifurcated. My first question is not having opening WIP. You only have closing WIP. Generally in WIP sums you have both. But I found this one of the past very old exam questions. When there was no opening WIP, only closing WIP was there. So first we are going to deal with sums where there is only closing WIP. And then from here, we go to sums where there is even opening WIP. And also we go to sums where you will have losses also. It means it is a complete question having all types of adjustments. This is fine, students. I hope you all are getting the flow of our lecture, right? Aage badhe. Now from here, the working will increase. We'll have more calculations to be done. We have more calculations to be done, students. So be more attentive. Please pay attention. There are more minute calculations, some more very interesting brainstorming concepts. Let us go to that. So now what is given? A company manufactures a products which involves two processes. The first is pressing process, the other is polishing process. And you are given details for the latest month, that is October. Now, I am saying that I am not taking a sum of opening WIP. That is why opening WIP for the time being is not given. Your inputs which are put in the process is the raw material put is 1200. Output is 1000, which automatically is put in the second process. So this is matching. The output of first process goes to the second process. Units in under process. Now, obviously, this is what they are talking about, the closing WIP. So these are the quantity details. Here the closing WIP is 500. And now you are given the cost details. Material cost and the labor and overheads combined is this. For both the processes, they have given you details. Fine, students. Now, for incomplete units in process, that is now they are talking about WIP. And which WIP? Closing WIP. They say material cost incurred is 100% and conversion cost done is 60%. This is in the first process. Whereas in the second process, it is 50%. Now what is 50%? The conversion cost. In short, 100% material is there for both processes, and only for the second process, sorry, not only, the conversion cost in both the processes is below 100. That is, here it is 60, here it is 50. Now, students, please let us understand what is this WIP all about and what is this percentage completion, what it means. See, when you understand the concept, understanding and solving the questions, even the difficult ones, the tricky ones becomes easy. Now, please understand one thing. I always explain the concept of WIP and this concept of percentage, etc., with one of my favorite things, that is T. So let us understand this with the help of T example. So let us say I run a cafe. In this, I serve specialized tea. Now, how do I prepare the tea? Let us say I only require one process. So there are no two processes. There is only one process for simplicity. Now, I bring raw milk in the morning. The milkman delivers me some 1000 liters milk, which is raw. what I do is I put to boil this milk, and this becomes boiled milk, which is now kept with me for the whole day. So this is the first thing that even you do in your houses. See, I'm trying to take a very generic example which you have yourself actually tested, so that you'll understand the costing. See, when you have done something physically, practically, understanding the logics, the theories, the technicalities becomes easier. So in our home also we do the same thing. In the morning, whenever we get fresh milk, or in the evening, we first boil it and make it a boiled milk so that it can be preserved for 2 or 3 days. So now I have completed some work at the start. Now this boiling required some amount of labor and overheads to work. Then comes the second step. All this is happening in the single process only. That whenever customers are coming to my cafe and they are ordering tea, I use this boiled milk and I added the tea powder and everything. I do the second boiling. So again, I'm writing boiling, but this is the second boiling which is required for preparing tea, and now my tea is complete. Now again, for this second time boiling, I'll incur some expense for labor and overheads, plus I'll incur the expense on tea powder, which I will add over here. Now please understand, my total tea is prepared by doing this boiling twice. So for preparing the tea, whatever material, labor I will require, since tea is my final product, whatever material, labor is required is 100%. So if I talk about tea, in tea my material is also 100%, labor and overheads is also 100%. What is this 100%? 100% is the quantity going into the tea for making it a final product. Since it is a final product, whatever has been done on it is my 100% work, because only when it is 100%, then only it will become final. Now, in comparison to whatever I have put in tea for making it 100%, how much I have done at the first step and how much I have done at the second step is the point to be understood. Now, out of total boiling which is required to make tea, which I am calling as 100%, let us say 60% boiling happens here and 40% happens here. So this is how 100% boiling or 100% processing on that particular raw material makes it final product, that is tea in my case. Now, throughout the day, wherever I have converted this raw material into tea, I have done entire work of material, that is my material is used for tea, and labor overheads, whatever they have done for making this tea, that is also 100%. But at the end of the day, there is a possibility that I may be left with some stock of boiled milk. This boiled milk stock, which is left at the end of the day, which is a normal case again in day-to-day life, is what represents my closing WIP. See, this is neither my raw material, which is raw milk. This is neither my final product, which is tea. This is somewhere in between with some processing done, some processing pending. That is why it is WIP. In this real life example, that WIP is nothing but the boiled milk, which I will keep in the refrigerator for storage. Now, at the end of the day, when I'm doing costing, I have two things in my output. I'm keeping losses aside. So there is no losses for the time being. I have two things in my output. One is out of the raw milk, that is the raw material, I have prepared some quantity of tea, and some quantity is lying with me in semi-finished form, unfinished form, which we are referring to as closing WIP, which is here boiled. Now, as far as tea is concerned, whatever I have done on tea, that represents 100% because tea is my final product. So whatever I'm doing on tea is my 100% work, whether of material, whether of labor overheads. But whatever I have done on boiled milk, it is not 100%. If it would have been 100%, it would also have become tea. But since I have not yet done 100%, that is why it is WIP. And in my example, I have done only 60% work on this particular boiled milk. So the boiled milk, which is right now lying with me in closing stock of today, which is a closing stock of semi-processed or of WIP goods, that is 60% in terms of labor and overheads. Means on that, till this point, I have incurred 60% of cost. I have done 60% of processing. Tomorrow in the morning, the same boiled milk I will take. I will do the remaining 40% of processing to make it final product, that is tea. Tomorrow I need not again do boiling because boiling is done already. So 60% work is done today. Balance 40 will be done tomorrow. This is how this raw milk will become my final product, that is tea. Students, have you understood this? Anybody has any doubts, questions? Please let me know so that we can understand the conceptual part first before I take you to the practical and the technical part. Yes, anybody wants to add something, wants to ask something, any doubts? Okay, Vika says, understood, Kiran, Yamini. Okay, good. So this is how this percentage completion comes. Please understand this. Right? Understood? Now, on the same lines, when they are saying that there is something incomplete in the process, they are referring to closing WIP. Generally, material is fully inserted at the start, so it is generally 100%. What is incomplete is in terms of labor overheads. That is why it is WIP. Had this been 100, it would have become final product. So it is still left to be complete. It is still in the incomplete stage or the semi-finished stage. Fine, students? Now, with this understanding, let us proceed. I'll just rub out this. Anybody wants, you can just take a screenshot for your future recalling remembrance. Right? Fine, students? Okay. So now, with this data at hand, let us understand the working, and also now let us understand this concept of equivalent production. So whenever you have WIP given in the sum, whether it is opening, closing, or both, you have to do additional working, which is of equivalent production statement. What is that? Let us understand. So now in this sum, we have two processes. The first is pressing, second is polishing. Again, we'll go step by step. So I start with my pressing process, the first process. So again, I have two raw materials. I have additional material, if any. I have direct wages. I have direct expenses. If any. I have production overheads. So these are generally the items. Along with this, you have now opening WIP, which for the time being is nil in this question. It will start from the second question. Now, what is the input units? 1200, costing rupees 96,000. So raw material is 1200, costing me 96,000. There is no additional material. What is the conversion cost? 36,000. So all this is combined to make it conversion cost. It is 3,36,000. For the time being in this sum, I have ignored losses. So you directly have by polishing process account, which is the final product of this process going to the next process. And you have the closing WIP. Correct? The breakup of the quantities are, you have transferred 1200 and goods lying in your stock, semi-finished is 200. So this is matching with your output, and hence there is no loss in this sum. So the first sum is without opening WIP. Also, the first sum is without any type of loss. Now, I have to do valuation of this. For this, I will require the working notes, where my first working would be of statement of equivalent production units. What is this? You'll get. Now, just a note of caution. Different books, different teachers have slight variation of the formats. I'm giving you my version of this particular format. It may not match with what you would have studied earlier. So please don't get confused. If you have any doubts, you can ask. So it is inputs, particulars, output, material, conversion cost. Within material, percentage completion and equivalent units. Percentage completion, equivalent units. Now this over here is material conversion cost, because I have only two costs in the sum. One is raw material, one is conversion cost. Had there been three costs like labor overheads are separate, I may have made separate column for labor overheads that we'll get to see. So broadly, these are your columns: inputs, particulars, output, and then column for expenses bifurcated into percentage completion and equivalent units. Percentage completion and equivalent. Now, in particulars, I will write out of opening WIP. Nothing is there in the input of opening WIP, so nothing is made out of opening WIP. See, understand this, out of. So what you have made output out of opening WIP, answer is nil, because there was no opening WIP in the first place. So what is the input that you are using for making your output? It is your fresh material, which is called as units introduced. So now I will say out of units introduced. Units introduced is whatever quantity of material you bring in, that is what is your units introduced. So my units introduced in this sum is 1200. Out of this units, what have I made? Firstly, I have made those units which I am transferring to polishing process, which is 1000. And I have made those units which are lying unfinished at the end of the day, that is closing WIP 2. So please firstly understand the structure of this, because only when you understand this structure, it is easy to understand and appreciate the workings that we are doing. So input is the debit side of process column quantity, no input of opening WIP, and 1200 units input of fresh material. Out of this input, the output that I'm making is, since there is no input of opening, there is no output of out of opening WIP. Whatever output I have made is out of the fresh material. Now, what are the outputs made? Some quantity goes to the next process, and some quantity will lie in this as my closing WIP. Yes. Kavita is asking, sir, how output of WIP is nil? Answer is beta. Output of WIP is nil because the input is nil. Means what? Since I did not have input, I did not make any output. Please understand, this is not output of closing WIP. Output of closing WIP is this. This is out of opening WIP, what output I have made. It is not output of WIP. It is what output I have made out of opening WIP. Had I had some output, had I had certain inputs of opening WIP, there would have been some output here. This will get in the next sum. But right now, since there is no input of opening WIP, there is no output out of opening WIP. I hope you are getting this. Whatever output I have made is only out of fresh material. So out of fresh material, 1000 units is output of going to the next process. 200 units is going or is becoming my closing WIP. Now, please remember, In the question, percentage of this will not be given. This is your final product of this process. So this is the tea which I have prepared in my example. So they will never give you the percentage because always final product is 100. So my percentage will never be given for final product. You have to remember, understand, and assume the percentage to be 100. You will only be given percentage of WIP, or in future sums, whenever losses would be there, you may be given percentage of losses. You will never be given percentage for your output because it is always 100 because it is output. Fine, students. Now, as far as percentage completion for closing WIP is given, it is 100% for material. And how much is for conversion cost? It is 60% for conversion cost. Right, students? Now, I find out equivalent units by multiplying my quantity with the percentage. So here I get 1000, here I get 1000. Again, quantity multiplied by percentage, here I get 200, here I get 120. So the total is 1200, total is 1150. Now what is this? This is the total equivalent units of material. This is total equivalent units of conversion cost. Now you'll ask me, sir, what is this equivalent unit? See, equivalent units is a concept which means equivalent means as good as. So in real, I have 200 units. Please understand like this, on which I have done only 60% working. So 200 units, which are 60% worked on, is as good as 120 units, which is fully complete. So 200 units semi-finished is equal to 120 units finished. This is the meaning logic of equivalent. Let me explain in a different manner just for the sake of understanding. Is I have 200 glasses. Please understand it like this. I have 200 glasses. All are 60% filled with water. So 200 glasses, 60% filled is equal to so 60% glasses, sorry, 200 glasses, 60% fill is equal to 120 glasses fully filled. This is equivalent. So when I have 200 units which are semi-finished lying in my stock, I want to know they are as good as how many finished goods. So that is what I get. They are as good as 120 finished goods units in terms of value. That is why we call as equivalent. So value wise, they are equal to, quantity wise, they are 200, but value wise 200 semi-finished goods is value wise as good as 120 finished goods. So what I get to know is when I say 1200 is my equivalent units for material, it means today, whatever I have spent on material is spent for 1200 equivalent units. Whatever I have spent on conversion cost is spent for 1120 equivalent units. Now, once I get to know this, how much I have spent for material and for conversion cost, now using the mother formula, I'll find out my cost per unit. So my second working is statement of cost per unit using the mother formula, but separately for material cost and for conversion cost. For material cost in numerator, I'll have my material cost. From that, I will deduct scrap value of normal loss upon material equivalent units. Similarly, in numerator, I'll have my conversion cost, and in denominator, I have my conversion cost equivalent. So material cost is 96,000, conversion cost is 3,36,000. Nil, why? Because in this sum there are no losses, so there is no scrap value. Now material equivalent units are 1200. Conversion cost equivalent units are 1120. So I will get my cost per unit. So as far as material cost is concerned, my cost per unit of material means I have spent for material per unit rupees 8. For labor, yes. That is for conversion cost, my per unit cost is 30. Is this understood and clear by all? Anybody not able to understand anything? Anybody wants any clarification? Now, once this is done, I'll do costing, which I will call as statement of valuation. Two things I have to value. One is what I'm transferring to the next process, polishing process, and the other is my closing WIP. Now, how do I value? Out of opening WIP, what have I prepared out of opening WIP in this sum? In this sum, I have prepared nothing out of opening WIP. Whatever I have prepared is out of units introduced. Yes, somebody has corrected me. This is 300. Okay. So, and the first is 80. Now, I have prepared these two things in my output. This is my final product of this process. This is the WIP in this process. And this whole I have prepared only out of units introduced because there was no opening WIP. Now, while doing this, I spent for material, I spent for conversion cost. Now pay attention, students. Now, for this polishing process here, how much I have spent for material, 1000 units. How much I have spent for conversion cost, 1000 units. So for polishing process, I have spent for material 1000 units and also for conversion cost for 1000 units. For closing WIP, I have spent on material, I have spent for material on 200 units and conversion cost, that is labor and overheads, I have spent for 120 units. It means whatever expenses I've incurred today is the expenses which I've incurred for 120 units. So for closing WIP, for material, I've spent for 1200, but for conversion cost, I've spent only for 120. Now, once I've got this, I will multiply it by the respective cost per unit to get my total cost. So 380,000 here, correct? This is 36,000. This is 16,000. 36 and 16 is correct. So the total value which I'm getting is 380,000 for the second process transfer units and 52,000 for closing WIP. 380, 52. So this is how I do costing whenever there is WIP in the question. Now here in this question, it is still basic, I will say, because there is no opening WIP. Also, there is no loss. Once these two things come into picture, the game changes and it becomes even more interesting. Fine, students? So, just see if anything is not understood by you all. There are three workings now. First is equivalent units. The second working is finding out cost per unit, where we have applied our mother formula. And in the third working, we have found out total value of each of my output items. It is a simple cost sheet in a very small format. This is the main working that you do in case of a WIP sum. Yes, anybody, any doubts? This is the most technical part according to me of this chapter also, and also in costing one of the most technical concepts is this working. And we are going to make it more technical in further sums. Is it understood, students? And let us go to the second process. After pressing, we have the polishing process, right? Okay. I'm glad you all are giving thumbs up, because generally it is very difficult to understand this concept in the first go. Because in fact, I've just solved it myself. Once you solve, once you practice, then these things get more crystallized. But if maybe because you have already practiced this, if it is getting clear, I'm very glad. So now I go to my second process, where for this process, my raw material is coming from the previous process. So it is to pressing process. What has come? 1,000 units at the value of P8. So 1,000 at 3,80,000. Correct? Then what are my other costs? I've spent for additional material 8,000 and for conversion cost 54,000. So additional material 8, conversion cost 54. Now here I will have, since this is my last process, finished goods, and I will have closing WIP of this process. What are the quantities? Units completed, that is finished goods, is 500. Units in process, closing WIP is 500. And as you can see, students, your input output is matching. That is why there is no loss in this sum. Now again, I need to do the valuation or costing of my these two output. One is in finished form, one is in semi-finished form. Again, the same steps would be repeated. My first working note is statement of equivalent production units. Again, input particulars, output, then you have material, you have conversion cost, percentage completion equivalent units, percentage completion equivalent units. Again, I write out of opening WIP. Since there was no opening WIP, nothing has been prepared out of opening. Whatever I have prepared is out of units introduced. These units are the one which I got from the previous process. So how many units are introduced? 1,000 units are introduced, out of which 500 became finished goods, 500 is still WIP. So out of this finished goods 500 and line in stock semi-finished. Clear? Any question, doubts? No? Now, no percentage will be ever given for finished goods, because finished are the ones which are 100%. Or other way around, Since they are 100%, hence they are finished. As far as closing WIP is concerned, in pressing process, the conversion cost portion is only 50, means material is already 100. So only 50% work was done on these 500 units, and that is why they could not be completed. They are lying semi-finished. So I multiply this to find out my equivalent units. This is 500. This is 500 and 250. Correct, students? So 1000 units is equivalent units for material. 750 is equivalent units for labor and overheads. Again, I go to working mode 2, which is cost per unit. First for material cost, then for conversion cost. Same other formula. It is numerator is material cost minus scrap value of normal loss upon material equivalent units. How much is material cost? Here I have materials in two forms. One is the main raw material and the additional material. I add up the two. This is my total material cost. So it becomes 3,88,000. Scrap value is nil. This cost I've incurred for how many units work? I worked on 1000 equivalent units. So the per unit cost of material comes to 388. Conversion cost, same. Numerator is the cost. Denominator is the equivalent units, that is the units on which this cost is incurred. So your conversion cost is 54,000 rupees. And this cost you have incurred on working of 750 units. So by spending 54,000, you work on 750 units. I'm getting 72 rupees as per unit cost for conversion. This is correct, students? Now I prepare valuation. Statement of valuation. I have to do valuation of two things. The first is valuation of my finished goods. And the second is valuation of the again out of opening WIP, nothing has been made. Whatever is made is out of you have spent for material and for conversion cost. Material for finished goods 500 units, conversion cost for finished goods 500 units. So for preparing finished goods, you have worked 500 units for material cost, 500 units for conversion cost. For making closing WIP, 500 units material, 250 units conversion. So Conversion cost is incurred on 500 units and on 250 units. Now, what is this cost that is incurred? This is 388. This is 72. Total. Give me the total cost, students. So 230 is finished goods. WIP is 212. Yes. Is this clear, students? I'm sure it would be very draining, these type of questions, especially back to back. But that is how our life as a professional is. We have to always stretch ourselves beyond what normal people do. We have to be consistent in our efforts, in our hard work. We have to be patient. At times, we have to struggle to reach somewhere. Things are not easy. It is not easy becoming a professional. It is many times easy to become something else. But for becoming and for being a professional, it is very, very, very challenging. But that is what makes professional a different breed, a different league. And for that, we have to be working committedly, always, right? I hope, students, this entire concept of WIP is clear to you all. Good. Swati, Om, they are all saying yes. I'm happy. Now, we will not be able to complete this sum. Rather, from this sum, we have to start something. Let me do one thing. Let us modify this sum. How? I'll tell you. So, I'm solving this sum without opening WIP details. Okay. So, I change this sum like this. So, this is the difference I have done in this sum with your permission, which I'm implied that I'm having. No question of P4 for the time being, because until and unless you don't have opening WIP, there is no question of P4. What I want to do in this sum is, I want to explain you how equivalent statement is made whenever there is loss given in the sum. So that is why I don't want to mix opening WIP here itself. Plus, I'm sure in past 2 hours, 15 minutes, by doing so many sums and with so many technical things, maybe you would have trained yourself a lot mentally. Some of you may be sitting since morning. So I don't want to overburden you with this opening WIP and the P4 and the weighted average. That we'll do in the next lecture. Let me first take you to the case where again we do not have opening. I'm not having opening, we only have closing WIP. But now what I have added in this sum is the adjustment for losses. So let us take up this sum with this modification. So input of material is 25,000 units at a cost of this. Wages is this, overheads is this. Now you get total output of scrap, that is of losses of 3,000, on which this much work has been completed. So for material, 100% is done. For labor overhead, 70% is. Then you have something left in your WIP, which is 2,500 units, again on which this much portion of work is done. And then you have units which are completed and transferred to the next process. It is this much. Fine, students. Now they are saying normal loss percentage is 10. Scrap value that you realize is 3. You have to prepare all the workings and the process account. I hope this is fine, students. So in this sum, we will have process account with losses also. So again, we are proceeding step by step. So before going to opening, I would like to take one more sum on equivalent units where you have losses given in the sum. So let me start. To opening WIP, for the timing it is nil. To direct materials, I've changed the figure, I've made it 25,000. To direct wages and to production overheads. So 88,500, 2,500, 41. 88,500, 2,500, 41,000. By normal loss, by process 2, and if this is the only process, then finished goods. We don't know what is the scenario. By closing WIP, I have kept one line blank. If I get abnormal loss, I'll put it here, right? Now, total loss is 3,000. Closing is 2,500. Finished goods is 19,500, and percentage of normal loss is 10%. So 10% of this will give me 2,500. However, my unit scrap is 3,000. It means 500 is abnormal loss. Had they given my unit scrap below 2,500, the difference would have become abnormal gain. Fine. WIP 2,500, units transfer is 19,500. I hope it is matching. 3,000 and 22, 25. Perfect. So our process account is complete as far as the quantity is concerned. Now let us go to the valuation. Scrap value is 3 per unit. So I get 7,500 as the value of normal loss. Now I have to do costing of 3 things. See, we are gradually increasing the number. Up till now we were doing costing. Firstly, we started with only one, that is output. Then it became 2, output plus loss, or output plus closing. Now it has become 3, output plus loss plus closing. Right? Now since it is a WIP sum, I'll have to start with statement of equivalent production units. Input, particulars, output. Now here, material, labor and overheads I am combining because they have given percentage for labor and for overheads and labor it is combined. So I'll also follow the same thing. So it is percentage completion equivalent units. Okay, just put this. So out of opening WIP, there is nothing. So obviously there is no output out of opening WIP. Out of units introduced, I have introduced 25,000 units, out of which 2,500 became normal loss. 500 has become abnormal loss. 19,500 has gone to the next process. And the balance 2,500 are lying in the same process as WIP. So see, out of the fresh material which I brought into this process, my losses are 3,000, which is in two parts, normal this much, abnormal this much. Final product or the units going to the next process after completion of processing is 19,500, and the units lying here itself in semi-finished stage is 2,500. Hope we have got everything, right? Now this sum will have something new. That is, for the first time, you will have losses in a WIP sum. That is, losses where percentage is given. So let us check. Now see, what are the percentages given? For unit scrap, that is for losses, the percentage given is 170. 170. For process 2, that is for final product, they will never give percentage, so put 100. For closing, the percentage given is 180. Now, what is the special point in losses in a WIP sum is you don't put anything for normal loss. You put a dash. This is the important point. In a WIP sum, whenever loss is given, this is what you do. Is this understood? This is the main point. This is what is to be paid attention to. So you put dash for normal loss. Now somebody will ask, sir, why do we put dash? Do we not know the percentage of normal loss? Yes, you do. You're already given the percentage of scrap. This is the percentage of scrap. It also applies to normal loss. But if you remember, in our mother formula, in the denominator, whenever we find out cost, we always reduce normal loss. See, in the denominator. So in the denominator, I want that quantity which is after subtracting normal loss. Fine. Now, in this working, whatever equivalent units I will get here, I am going to take it in denominator whenever I am doing cost per unit. So as you saw in the previous sum, whatever equivalent units I got, I took it to the denominator, subtract normal loss units. Now, I can take normal loss quantity here, taking these percentages only because these are the percentages for loss. So it is also applicable to normal loss. But had I taken this percentage here also and computed quantity of normal loss, again in that working of cost per unit by the mother formula, in the denominator, I was supposed to subtract it. So first I will add it here. Again, I'll take it there and subtract it. So instead is, since I have to subtract it, let me not consider it in the first place. The moment I don't consider it, the quantity which I'm getting over here, which I'm going to take in my cost per unit as a denominator, this quantity will be after subtraction of normal. So directly the quantity which I will get is the quantity after subtracting normal. So the effect is subtraction of normals. I hope you got the logic of why to put dash. So that in my second working here, that is statement of cost per unit, when I'm finding out my cost per unit, here in the denominator, I will take equivalent units from here. The units which I'm going to take here will be minus normal loss. That is what I want. Labor and overheads equivalent. This I'm going to consider here. I want this as minus normal loss. I hope you all got this logical point. So in numerator, I take the cost, and in denominator, I want the quantity minus normals. So to get that effect, I'm taking dash here. This is the logic of this. Fine, students? So 500, 350, 19,500, 2,500, and 2,000. Correct? So 21, 22,500. Right, students? Pakka? 21, 850. Numerator 88,500 minus 7,500. This 20 plus 41. Right? This is fine. Yes, Bhumika, that is what is the logic. So we are putting dash in front of normal loss so that our equivalent units are automatically net of normal loss. That is what we want in the denominator. We want these units net of normal loss. That is what I'm explaining. So you have got it right, Bhumika. Good. So students, give me the cost per unit. 61,500 is what? Labor and overheads is 61,500. What is 61,500? Home you put something 61,500. The loss versus 3.6, 2.792. Please confirm. Now I have to do valuation of three things: abnormal loss, second process, closing the line. Again. Now again, pay attention. For abnormal loss, for material I have worked on 500. For labor overheads I have worked on 350. So 500, 350. For process 2, both material labor, I have worked 19,500 units. And for closing, for material 2,500, labor overheads 2,000. This is the quantity on which I have worked. So I'll take these quantities and I'll multiply it by the cost per unit. So 3.6 for material, 2.792. So total. Now give me total cost for each item, abnormal, process 2, closing. Students, start posting the answers. Chong is saying direct wages is 2,500. Here. Okay. 1 second, students. This is 61,500. Please check if cost per unit is correct. Whether it is now 3. 2.81. Exact. Whether this is 2.81 exact or it is decimal. I think I'm getting decimal. Yes, it is 2.8146 something. And please don't round it off, otherwise your answers will be wrong. Is this correct? No, Bhumika, I think we'll have to revise the answer because the cost per unit of labor and overheads is slightly different. Closing WIP is 14,620, Swati says, as per the new cost, right? 9.2. It's 29. And this is 27,165. I think these are the answers. Check. 5-1. 125085. But these are not matching up. 1416. They will not match to make up the total. The normal losses 2783.5. You are sure? He is saying this is 2783.5. So I'm saying 2783.5. Then there is some variation. Please check. Students, Please use your calculators. $150. So total cost should match with 150 beta. If it is not matching, there is a calculation error. So it's 0.852784. V1. This is the final figure. I'm getting these figures, students. Kindly check, confirm. So students, this is the answer according to me. So see, what is the special point that brings us to this particular question is about the treatment of losses whenever there is WIP. The first important point that you get to know is the percentage of normal loss will be ignored. You'll put dash in normal loss. Second thing, for abnormal loss, you'll put the percentage given in the sum. If not given, you'll put 100. So for abnormal loss, the percentage is the percentage given in the sum, or it is 100%, 100% if no percentage is given. This is for abnormal loss only. Similarly, for process 2, you'll always take 100, and for closing, you will take the percentage that is given. Is this clear to all? So we reached to the second last part of our chapter. That is, we reached to the sums without opening WIP. Now, in our next session, day after tomorrow, we will deal with sums with opening WIP, where you will have FIFO and weighted average method, where you will have different adjustments in terms of losses and everything. And yes, you're right, Swati, the last thing that we'll be doing is inter-process profit sums. So that is what is for the next session. So in the meantime, you can solve sums of these category. That is what you will not solve is inter-process. What you will not solve is opening WIP. Other than that, you can solve any question from process. Fine, students. It was a great time. Thank you very much to all for being present, for being attention. Kavita, I've already uploaded beta. Maybe you just check again. I think it should be there. So thank you. Thank you very much. Keep studying, and blessings and best wishes for the festive season. Yes, Kiran has some doubts. Let me unmute you, beta. Yes, Kiran, please go ahead.
Sir, last session का question 11 वो नहीं आ रहा है.
11 किसका बेटा?
सर कॉस्ट अकाउंटिंग सिस्टम का
मॉड्यूल में दिया है?
नहीं सर, आपके नोट्स में है सर. मेमोरेंडम अकाउंट दिया है एंड प्रॉफिट एंड लॉस अकाउंट फाइनेंशियल अकाउंट का दिया है, उससे कॉस्टिंग पीएनएल में पहुंचना है, तो वो समझ में नहीं आ रहा कि वो ओवर एब्जॉर्ब है कि अंडर एब्जॉर्ब है। सर लास्ट क्वेश्चन है।
मैं आपको बताता हूँ बेटा, आपके सामने वो क्वेश्चन में मेमोरेंडम अकाउंट ओपन है।
जी सर।
मेमोरेंडम अकाउंट के क्रेडिट साइड में जाइए, स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट कौन सा प्रॉफिट दिया है?
सर दोनों दिया है।
नहीं बेटा, स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट हमेशा लेफ्ट साइड में जो दिया रहता है वो स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट रहता है, राइट साइड वाला तो बैलेंसिंग फिगर बोल के आता है। तो लेफ्ट साइड यानी क्रेडिट साइड पे आपका स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट कौन सा प्रॉफिट है?
सर हमारा दोनों साइड में दिया, एक साइड कॉस्टिंग का प्रॉफिट दिया है, एक साइड
बेटा
में
बेटा आपने मेरी बात नहीं
फाइनेंशियल
सुनी,
अकाउंट का दिया।
आपने मेरी बात नहीं
जी
सुनी।
सर।
मैंने कहा क्रेडिट साइड पे कौन सा प्रॉफिट दिया है?
जी सर।
कौन सा दिया बेटा?
सर सर प्रॉफिट एज पर कॉस्ट अकाउंट दिया है।
बराबर। तो आपके मेमोरेंडम में प्रॉफिट एज पर कॉस्ट अकाउंट दिया है क्रेडिट साइड पे, यानी स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट इज प्रॉफिट एज पर कॉस्ट अकाउंट्स। डेबिट साइड पे जो दिया
सर
है बेटा
क्रेडिट साइड पे फाइनेंशियल अकाउंट का प्रॉफिट दिया है और डेबिट साइड पर कॉस्ट अकाउंट का प्रॉफिट दिया है।
हाँ बेटा, तो जो क्रेडिट साइड पे दिया है वो स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट है। बेटा दोनों तरफ प्रॉफिट आता है ना, एक स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट होता है, फिर उसमें हम एडलेस करते हैं तो क्लोजिंग आता है जो डेबिट साइड पे आता है। कंफ्यूजन क्यों होना चाहिए बेटा, दोनों तरफ प्रॉफिट आता है ना। ये देखो, अगर मेरे पास पिछला शीट में 1 मिनट निकाल पाया तो ये देखो, रिकंसिलिएशन में दोनों साइड पे प्रॉफिट है या नहीं है बेटा? क्रेडिट साइड पे स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट हो गया, डेबिट साइड पे भी आया ना प्रॉफिट, प्रॉफिट तो दोनों साइड पे आएगा ना बेटा। किरण, किरण आप मुझे सुन पा रहे हो?
जी सर। जी सर।
आपको दिख रहा है बेटा दोनों साइड पे प्रॉफिट आता है ना रिकंसिलिएशन में?
हाँ सर।
तो अब आपका क्या डाउट है वो पूछो।
सर उसमें मेमोरेंडम अकाउंट में अब अगर हम इसको डेबिट साइड मानते हैं तो स्टार्टिंग भी कॉस्टिंग में की है, और अगर क्रेडिट साइड का उधर माने तो उसमें भी स्टार्टिंग फाइनेंशियल प्रॉफिट से किया है।
ठीक है, फिर आगे
सर फिर आगे
पूछो बेटा।
उसमें डेबिट साइड का देखें तो कॉस्टिंग प्रॉफिट एज पर कॉस्ट अकाउंट 1,300,000 एंड डिफरेंस इन स्टॉक वेरिएशन, ओपनिंग स्टॉक ऑफ रॉ मटेरियल इज 320, closing stock of finished goods is 682, discount received is 1790।
ठीक है बेटा, अब आगे पूछो, मैंने ओपन कर लिया स्क्रीन पे।
जी सर।
अब बताओ आपका डाउट।
सर हाउ टू प्रोसीड अबाउट इट, कैसे चले?
हाँ, अब देखो बेटा, आपके क्रेडिट साइड पे प्रॉफिट एज पर फाइनेंशियल है, करेक्ट?
जी सर।
तो ये जो चीजें आपने क्रेडिट साइड पे लिखी है, ये सब आपने फाइनेंशियल प्रॉफिट में ऐड की है,
जी सर।
और ये जो आपने डेबिट साइड पे लिखी है ये आपने फाइनेंशियल प्रॉफिट्स में से लेस की है।
जी सर।
बराबर है बेटा, ये समझ में आया क्या?
जी जी सर, अब समझ में आया। अभी तक
करेक्ट
समझ में नहीं आ रहा था, लग रहा था वो कॉस्ट अकाउंट से किया गया है।
बेटा, वो बैलेंसिंग फिगर है, उसको छोड़ दो, ये तो बाद में बैलेंसिंग फिगर आता है। आप क्या करते हो, आप ये प्रॉफिट से स्टार्ट करते हो, इसमें कुछ चीजें ऐड करते हो, कुछ लेस करते हो,
जी
तो ये
सर।
तो बैलेंसिंग
जी
फिगर आता है।
जी सर, अब समझ में आ
अब
गया मैं हाउ टू प्रोसीड।
आ गया बेटा समझ में?
अब समझ, जी जी अब समझ गया। अब
परफेक्ट।
प्रॉफिट, अब कॉस्टिंग का पीएनएल बन जाएगा।
सॉरी बेटा,
सर कॉस्टिंग का पीएनएल बनाना है ना इसके बाद इसका?
वो बन जाएगा आपसे।
जी सर बन जाएगा, नहीं बनेगा तो मैं पेपर में कुछ नहीं।
श्योर बेटा, वापस पूछ लेना मुझसे, नो प्रॉब्लम। ठीक है,
थैंक यू सर, थैंक यू सर।
थैंक यू वेरी मच। सो स्टूडेंट्स, प्लीज पढ़ते रहिए, ज्यादा से ज्यादा सम सॉल्व करिए। That will be very, very, very helpful for your exams and also for your career in this subject. Thank you very much. Today is the first day of Diwali, Vasu Baras. So wishing you all the warmest wishes of this day. Thank you. Take care. Enjoy with your family. Bye bye.